Hello and welcome to our webinar on losing your reach on LinkedIn. I hope you find this conversation useful, and the presentation that I'm going to give or conversation we can have in the comments, hopefully useful to you in terms of understanding what's going on with LinkedIn, whether there's an opportunity for you to re-establish your network and grow that connection base. By all means, drop a comment in at any stage, or come back if you are watching this later. Come back and leave a comment in the chat window, and we'll still see that coming through as a comment on LinkedIn as a platform if it doesn't kill us all in the meantime. So welcome today. I'd like to acknowledge that I am coming to you from the lands of the Darug people here in Australia, and welcome any Indigenous participants, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So, LinkedIn, have you lost your reach? And is this something that you are finding in your various different challenges, either in work, professional life, or personal life? I don't know if anyone uses LinkedIn as from a personal perspective, but hey, maybe they do. I've got a presentation I'd like to share with you. We'll step through that. Hopefully, we'll give you some ideas for what you can do, understand a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes, and maybe being able to move forward with your own digital strategies and plans into the future. So who am I? So I'm Gavin Heaton. I'm co-CEO at Disruptors Co. We believe in innovation on purpose. So whenever we look at anything that's new, exciting, even if it's old and exciting, what we're trying to do is look for the purpose behind that and understand whether there's an opportunity to really amplify that purpose to make it have a great impact. As you can see, I'm also a big believer in community connection and creating impact. And if you want to have impact, it's really hard to have impact if no one knows what you're talking about or what you're doing. So while we might find a certain level of frustration with LinkedIn, finding a way to tap that algorithm and that platform to make that impact, to reach the right people, to engage a community and to activate that community is a challenge that we do need to face if we want to keep using this platform in a way that suits us and works for us. So about a couple of months ago, I really noticed that my LinkedIn reach was going down. So I used to get roughly around about between 500 and 1,000 impressions for each post. And I thought that was relatively good. And I'd worked my way up from very small numbers over a long period of time. And I don't have a large LinkedIn following. But what I do have is a very well-connected community around that. And so most of the people that I know on LinkedIn, I'm connected with, and I do have some sort of relationship with most of them. However, over time that grows, and you lose contact with people and so on. So sometimes you realize that the network that you've got or the connections you've got don't necessarily reflect how well you are connected to that community. And in some ways, LinkedIn is kind of reflecting that reality as well. So what happened was my reach started to drop, and I was dropping down to about 200 to 300 impressions per post, sometimes lower, sometimes 5, sometimes 10. And I was concerned because this is one of the ways that I, 1, reach my community and engage with them, 2, generate business, and 3, just find interesting things and interesting people to talk to, which is pretty important to me. But finding that it was dropping made me a little bit concerned. So I dug a bit deeper and realized that the pattern that I was used to had been completely interrupted. So you can see here on everyone's LinkedIn, it looks pretty much the same. Down the left-hand side, you have your profile and various different pieces of information. Down the center, you have your feed, and on the right-hand side, you have recommendations. So that piece in the center there, we used to know that we could like, comment, post, and so on. And that would send a signal to LinkedIn that I'm interested in this content. When we looked at the infinite scroll that is involved in that feed, it's literally will go forever. But if you really do a bit of a deep dive into it, and I have done this several times, you start to realize it's filled with a whole lot of content that's not about the people you're connected with, not about the stuff you're interested in, nothing about the profession that you're working in, and so on. And so it was getting pretty messy. And the more that I scrolled, the less relevant I found it. And that, again, that started to worry me as well, because what that was sending, the signals that I was sending to LinkedIn were actually nothing to do with what I was interested in, because I was stopping every now and then and looking at something, and that was triggering the LinkedIn feed to send me more of the same. So what if we could change that? What if we could, adapt that? Because what we're seeing, and we've seen this with TikTok and other similar platforms, is that the feed becomes a very vital two-way part of the way that the platform engages with its user base. So just as you use it, it informs the algorithm, and the algorithm then just replays that back to you. One of the things that we realized, or I realized several years ago, is working on a platform for LinkedIn influence called Influencer Active. And we built a really interesting platform there that allowed us to reach a very large network of hyper-connected individuals. Some of these people had millions of followers on LinkedIn, and they used LinkedIn completely differently to the way that I did. And in fact, they looked at my meager 5,000 followers and just thought that I was an amateur and didn't know what I was doing. And as I spoke to them more and more, I realized that they actually had a completely different mindset around the way that they use LinkedIn and the reason why they use LinkedIn and the approaches they took to using LinkedIn. One of that was to understand the game system behind the LinkedIn algorithm and what works. So whether you can time your post for maximum reach, whether you could get others to help you boost that signal, and whether you could use comments and sharing to really amplify that. The main thing that they all did, and they did tell me, was that consistency was key. A lot of people will tell me that they're worried about spamming their network, right? So if you think about how many people you are connected to, and maybe you've got 1,000, right? If you put a post up, not every one of those 1,000 people are going to see that post, right? That would be crazy. That would be 100% reach. But it's a very, very small percentage. And then you put up a second post. Again, only a small percentage is going to see that. If you put up 5 posts, you might get, maybe 5, 10, 15% of your connections seeing that post. That's really not that much, right? So people often wonder or worry about posting fairly regularly. And this is the first thing that I did learn, was that the amount of frequency that you post isn't that much of a worry, because LinkedIn won't let you spam people. Their algorithm is designed to stop that and to stop you from doing that. So first of all, don't worry about spamming people. But secondly, think about it in a more strategic way. Now, this old approach, and you probably have had lots of LinkedIn gurus telling you exactly how to do this, how to build your network, and so on. And for most of us, that has worked really, really well. So we've been able to build really good networks. We've got people in specific industries. We've got companies that we can follow that are related to the industry we work in, or where we have some expertise. It gives us a really great way of connecting straight to the professional people that you're trying to get in contact with, and you can stay up to date with what they're doing in their professional life, whether they're changing jobs, whether they've got announcements to make, and so on. So LinkedIn up to this point has been very useful. It's given us a great space to connect, build organic reach, but also maybe even connect beyond that initial first level of connection, so that you reach into other people's networks and connect with people who are interested in the same kind of things as you are. But a couple of months ago, they changed the algorithm. So what we know is that LinkedIn is always testing new things. So sometimes you'll see a big push on video. Sometimes you'll see polling. There'll be animated profile photos. There'll be all sorts of different things. So they're always testing and pushing. But what happened a little while ago was that the main algorithm was shifted out. And the main way that we interact with LinkedIn, which is through that feed, has changed fundamentally. And it's no longer just an algorithm. It's actually closer to a brain. And they've replaced it with 3 artificial intelligence engines, which we'll talk to you about now. The 3 AIs are 360 Brew, then a reasoning engine, and the Gen AI assistant. The first 2 are the most important ones for us, and probably 360 Brew is the first one that we do want to dive into. What they are doing is working completely differently, dynamically, in order to deliver your feed every time you log into LinkedIn. So the Feed AI or 360 Brew is going to predict what kind of content you are going to like, engage with, and find relevant to you. Think of it a bit like the TikTok For You engine. It works in a very similar kind of way. And I'll explain a little bit more about it in a moment. The second one is the Scoring AI or the reasoning engine. And what it's doing is it's taking a look at all the other factors around your feed, your profile, your connections, your network, and so on. And it tries to figure out what's important to you so that it can deliver that to you just when you need it. And of course, then there's the generative AI assistant, which is probably the weakest link in all three of these. And that's where it starts to generate content for you. Generating content, as you probably have realized with ChatGPT and so on, is a real challenge. It's something that AI is not very good at, but we also do have a bit of a solution for that. And I'll talk to you about that towards the end. So 360 Brew has a flavor all its own, and it's a foundation model, which means in the world of AI that, and you've used these foundation models before, ChatGPT and Claude are both of these, both foundation models. And what a foundation model is, it's an AI that is pre-trained on a lot of text and data, and it uses that pre-training to understand language, to understand concepts and ways of thinking and reasoning within that language, so that it can use natural language to engage with you. So it's a little bit circular, but you can see here on the right-hand side that Brew 360, for example, is looking at, it's giving itself a prompt to think about what it is that you're wanting to see. If you want to dive into how this actually all works, there's a link here, QR code, and also the bit.ly link. 360 Brew will take you to the research paper that was built by the LinkedIn AI engineers to explain how this is all working. But basically what 360 Brew is doing is it's understanding all the different pieces of information in real time that you've got either in your network, in your recent experience, or across your profile. And it brings it all together to try and sort through what is most important to you. So it's doing the job of curation at scale, really super fast to deliver high impact to you. Hopefully it's working for you. But in many cases, what we find, it's a bit like TikTok. You need to do the work of curating your feed, liking things, unliking things, commenting, and so on, so that you're giving the engine enough real-time usage data that allows you to get better content out of the engine itself. I kind of see it as a big custom GPT. And if you've done any OpenAI customization, so using the custom GPT engine, you'll know that there's some specific things you need to do to make it work really, really well. So I use this form to understand how to create my GPTs. So here's an example. If I was to create my own alternative Gavin brain on ChatGPT, I might call it the other half of my brain, and I'd give it a whole series of instructions which tell it how to work with me. So I would say something like, you're an expert marketing strategist with a great knack for creativity, blah, 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 blah. And so you give it a framing of what you want it to do. So you say, this is what I want you to do. You outline the task ahead of it. You refine it with some constraints. So you say, don't give me this, don't give me that. And then you model the output. So you say, here's a really good example of what I'm looking for. If you think that that's the way that 360 Brew works, then it helps you understand what you need to give it in order to get more out of it. Hopefully that's making sense. And by all means, drop me a comment if you have any questions. So what happens is when you submit or you log in and you start scrolling through your feed, what you're going to see is 360 Brew in action. And it's going to go out, look at your profile. It's going to see your background. It's going to see your work history. It's going to see your interests, your profession, the kind of people you're connected to, and so on. So it brings all that information. And then it says predictively, if Gavin is like this, what should I show him? And then it delivers those links, those connections, those ads even straight into my feed. Whereas the old system used to use a range of signals, like some of these pieces, so signals like a like, a comment, a share, and so on, they are kind of signals that the algorithm used to use. But because we're now dealing with an AI, it's looking at all this information in real time as unstructured data. It's not looking for specific pieces of information. So it's using its reasoning engine to understand a bit more about the motivation or suggested motivation behind your actions. So it's looking at your behavior, what you follow through on, and it understands what your profile is like, what you've read, what you like, what you engage with, and it understands your expertise. And a lot more behind the scenes there as well, which is a little bit scary, but true, but scary. And it takes that and it pulls it all together to deliver the feed to you. The idea behind this, of course, is to get you to spend more time on LinkedIn, because the more time you spend on LinkedIn, the more valuable you see it, the more ads they can show you, the more money they can make, the more chances they have for you to subscribe to a professional package around LinkedIn as well. So there's lots of reasons why they want you to have large, long dwell times, but it's not really about you. It's about them making more money from you. So we need to think about, how do we get value out of this? Because if we don't want to be the product, we want to be at least have some role in the power of how that works. So the reason that you lost your reach is generally that the algorithm has shifted and changed. That when we are responding to this shift, we're sort of seeing that we need to generate more content. So people are using a lot of ChatGPT, and that ChatGPT sounds like everybody else. So you've actually lost a little bit of your edge there because you're using AI. And part of the reason you're using AI is because you know that you need to post more often, because that gives you recency in the feed. But if you're not posting quite a lot, then you're not posting enough to trigger that algorithm in such a way that's going to see you, recognize you, and pop you up to the top of the list. And most certainly, you're not being seen as an expert in your field. And this is one of the big fundamental challenges, is if you have your profile and it's built around a particular industry or category area, and you don't reinforce that with posting, with sharing links, with posting webinars, with hosting polls and so on. If you're not doing those things as well, then you're not going to be seen as a topical authority in your area. So the challenge with all this is you need to produce more content, you need to post regularly, you need to make it fairly personal, you need to make it professional, you need to raise it up a level so that it's really good quality, and you need to do it at scale. And if you're not doing all those things, you'll find your reach continues to drop, because you're not being consistent, you're not being relevant to the feed, and you're not providing value back into that feed and the network that you're trying to reach. Scary but true. So what does this mean for us? Here's what I think. I think it's time for us to treat LinkedIn a bit differently. So remembering that 360 Brew is a large language model, so focusing on the word language. We know that it's going to use language to judge us, to assess us, to evaluate us, and to reinforce its own model. So our challenge, your challenge, is to treat all of your text on LinkedIn as direct input into this large language model. So that means updating your about us. It means updating the way that you think about things, about the way that you write about things, about the way that you use different styles of content. I want you to think about improving your profile story. So here that means looking at your profile really with an eagle eye and try and refine your headline and your about section. Does it reflect the you that you want to be known for on LinkedIn and in your professional life? I would start by rewriting it by hand. Or you can do what we're starting to see emerge a bit more forcefully at the moment, is use AI to kick off the process, but then come back with a really heavy personal edit and go through and strike out all the stuff that sounds a little bit too generic and reinforce it with something that's a little bit more nuanced and focused on your real expertise. It also means that you need to craft your posts for quick understanding. So it's a little bit like SEO and the shift that we're seeing there as well. It's happening in that sort of SEO marketing world as well. So that whole angle around being able to write for AI overviews and AI answers rather than for SEO and traffic to your website. We're now having to write short paragraphs, bullet points, well structured for meaning, so that the AI can quickly scan it, see whether you are an expert in your field, whether you're offering some value, whether it's something that's new and original, and whether it can actually use that to pop that content up into a simple, meaningful format that it thinks is going to work for your audience. So it does require a bit of a new approach to your content. I want you to also deliberately showcase your expertise. So if you are really good in a particular area and you're known for that in your industry, then show but don't tell. So demonstrate the experience you've got. Talk through a case study, do that kind of work and see how that goes. I want you to also signal the expertise and experience. So don't just talk to the facts that you have. Explain how you did it, why you did it, why that's important, and write for the audience in the language that they are going to understand. The next one is to warm up and show up. So just because you are posting once a week or once every day doesn't mean that your article is going to reach anywhere near the volume of people that you've got in your network. So the trick is to warm up your feed by turning up and checking out and commenting on other people's content. So comment, like, share, and so on. Pre-post some lightweight articles. If you've got a couple of links you can share, do that. If you've got an insight that you'd like to share or discuss, do that. But follow up and engage with your community about 10 to 15 minutes before you want to post your more meaningful content. So a bit like a chat show. You don't just turn up to a chat show and see the performer there on stage. They're going to have a warm-up act that's going to get the crowd ready and excited. That's what we need to do with the LinkedIn algorithm as well. So your new game plan, you can do this manually, but it does take some effort. The reason we do it is because there's 1 billion people on LinkedIn, and they are all probably potential marketplace buyers for the work and services that we offer. So at the moment, there's not really a LinkedIn competitor out there that's viable or very useful to us. So it's the only game in town. So we need to figure out how to do this and how to make it work for us. The other thing to remember with LinkedIn is that it's a high velocity platform. So almost half of that billion audience log in once a month, and about 16 to 20% of people log in every day. So there's a lot of activity going on there. And if you're in B2B marketing, or you've got a product that you're selling into a business, then you're going to realize that that's where a lot of decisions are made. So figuring out how to get this algorithm to work for you, this network to work for you, and understanding the time of day patterns or the time of week patterns is really, really important, because it's where your market is, and reaching them where they are is super useful. So what do you need to do to win in this new space? I would spend some time carving out a distinctive tone of voice. So you want to stand out from the generic AI content. So that means have a point of view, have a perspective, understand your audience, and understand where you think you can create value. High frequency posting is another thing. So make sure you stay top of mind and you are top of feed. And you are feed ready. So make sure your content is working on that level. Be relevant to the topic that you are working in. So build authority signals in your niche area. If you're in marketing, speak to marketing. If you're in advertising, speak to advertising. If you're in accounting, speak to accounting and the challenges that accountants or your customers face. Use light touch automation if you feel you can. Try to make it sustainable without sounding fake. As soon as you're starting to sound too fake, you'll start to find your reach diminishing again. So some suggestions, things you can do: think through your expertise and develop a tone of voice unique to you. So write it down, do this manually. Post way more than you feel comfortable. Remember, LinkedIn won't let you spam your network. 360 Brew will take care of that, don't worry. Write in a variety of formats. Use posts, share links, share articles, write articles, use newsletters. Stimulate the AI to your benefit. be consistent, and build momentum over time. Now, that's a lot, right? There's a lot involved in making this work for you. And we've been working on this sort of challenge in terms of thought leadership and scaling thought leadership for quite some time. And we do this with clients all the time. And you can do this manually, or you can do it with a tool. You can do it with ChatGPT, but you're not going to do as good a job unless you put the effort in and you build a system around it. So what we've done is we've gone away and we've built a tool called ProPresence, which we are open for business, and you can certainly engage with the ProPresence platform for free for the first 14 days, or reach out and we'll send you a code for the first month free. And I'll show you a little bit about how that works, because it answers some of the challenges that you face, and it also taps into the way that the system actually works. So let me just pop over here to ProPresence. Here you can see from our dashboard that we have a very quick snapshot of what's going on the platform itself and how we're connected into LinkedIn. So this is my profile, and you can see that I've got 22 articles, I've got 147 posts, and I've got a quick way of jumping straight into a daily digest of what is going on in my industry. I can generate a new article, I can manage the posts in my calendar, I can track a LinkedIn post if I need to, and I can update the article statistics as I'm going if I want to make sure that I'm tracking in the right way. We've also built an AI assistant inside the platform, which is also an AI assistant. So it's a little bit meta, but the idea here is that we wanted to be AI first. We wanted to use AI within the platform itself to continuously reinforce the learning and to make the performance of the people that we serve better as well. And you can see here that I've got some insights that have come out of the engine over the last 7 days, and it tells me what I might need to think about and to look at. So I've got some quick wins here, and I've got a full analysis that I can review, or I can dive down here more deeply into how my articles are going, what the impressions are, and so on. As you can see, that this is just over a week or so, but it's fairly all over the place. What I was finding was that the trending pattern was always down, and until we started to use ProPresence in this new way, it wasn't bouncing back up. So we've found a little bit of a niche here that seems to be working. Let me show you a little bit of how this actually works. So here in my calendar, in my posts section, each day the platform goes out, and in my area of interest and expertise, which I've set up in my profile, it will go out and it will find articles that are in this space, and the AI will learn over time which articles are of interest, which articles are not, and I can do that by using my voting system here, up and down. But over time, it will get better and richer results. I can also just go out and fetch new results straight away based on the industry that I'm in. But when you're setting up your profile, what we do is we ask you to share your LinkedIn profile and some samples of your writing. And from that, we develop a unique tone of voice print so that everything that is written by the engine should sound pretty much like you. And it will go away and it will craft a post using these links in your tone of voice. So I'll show you just quickly how this actually works. So I do quite like a marketing trend, and I could generate a post, I could auto schedule it, or I could create an article. So the article would be longer form and have a deeper readership, or I could just write a post. And because the posting engine is quite dynamic at the moment, it's quite useful to just test out some ideas here. You can always go back and rewrite a post as an article as well. From here, you can see that I can quickly click on the article to read this in detail if I wanted to, because I might want to say, if this is from Google and I want to see what perspectives they've got, I might quickly just check that out and say, okay, what do they think the top digital marketing trends and predictions are for 2026? Well-being, AI transforming consumer behavior, young audiences seeking creative participation. So actually, these are quite good trends. So that's useful to me. And I might say, focus on Gen Z, understanding engagement. And I might want a shorter post, 150 words, or a medium post. What we find is that a certain number of words in each post is going to perform better than others. And the timing of that is going to affect the way that post performs as well. If I wanted to email a copy of this post to myself before I post it, I could actually just do that by clicking this little link here. And I can also put the post into the comments, which is a useful way of extending reach, because LinkedIn doesn't like you putting links straight into their posts. And it does then tend to depress the amount of reach that you get for each post. I can also upload another image if I wanted to, but basically I'm going to try and generate a post now based on that. It's going to be about 200 to 300 words, and it's going to include that article. And you can see right now it's removing the AI markers in the generated post so that it sounds a little bit more like me. And you can see a LinkedIn article preview here at the top. So you can see we've got an image, got the title and so on, but then it's going to reflect, hopefully, my tone of voice. I'm not going to start with the word okay, but I might start with trying. And then you can see that it's actually introducing the article that I was talking about. Oh, well, I need to spell that like an Australian, so I'm going to change that there. And I'm not going to say honestly that many times. But you can see also here that Lexi has gone through and analyzed this post, and it's telling me that from a performance factors point of view, the optimal post length is good. I've got some personal insight that is maybe there, but I need a little bit more work on it. That work is likely to be to do with scheduling the time of day. And it knows that the time of day is really, really important. And if I do that at a time of day that is useful to my audience, which say 11:45 tomorrow, because it's just before lunch and maybe they'll read it just before lunch, I can then schedule that post and it will go away and it will schedule that to go out at 11:45 tomorrow. So if you're connected to me and following me and you've maybe clicked on something that I have published recently, then it may show in your feed or it may not. Depends on your own 360 Brew and how that's working out for you. Similarly, the platform allows you to do articles. As you can see here, I can just simply click on the articles and I can see what's going on. I can generate a new article, I can import an external article, and so on, and it will generate the article in my tone of voice, which I can then publish. The trick with article publishing, however, is that you cannot do that by API, so you have to send it to yourself, which you can do just by clicking this little button here, and it will email that article to you, which you can then post manually. Over here in the calendar, I can see what's lined up for the day and the week ahead. And you'll see here that this is my posting schedule for today. You can see a whole bunch of things have been already published from 4 a.m. through to 7 a.m. and onwards, and some things that are lined up for tomorrow. But you can also see my weekly view here, and you can see what's lined up and what has been published over the last few days, what's scheduled to come ahead, and when and where. So you can see this gives us a great deal of consistency, of focus, and ideally it's going to generate content and recommendation on top of the 360 Brew for all the people I'm connected to in my network. And if you do this every day, if you do this, and by every day I mean maybe just for about 15 minutes each day, you'll find that your reach starts to climb back up. You start to see something closer to the kind of growth that you used to have and the amount of connection you used to have. However, what I'm finding is that the engagement for these kind of posts, because they're a little bit more focused and because they're well timed, they tend to generate higher levels of engagement. So if I look back over the last 30 days, and we've only been running this platform in its current form, in shape for the last 3 weeks. So you can see that in the last 3 weeks, we've had some really good success in terms of the amount of engagement that we're getting. Before that, our engagement rates were very low. So finding the right balance, finding the right ways of connecting in with this type of content, and finding the right audiences will reinforce how well your LinkedIn feed is going. It'll open up doors into the networks you're trying to reach. And hopefully it will give you the kind of connection and engagement that you're seeking, either for your business or for your professional presence. I'd now like to turn it over to anyone who might have a question. I don't see anything in the feed so far, but if you've got any questions, I can certainly take them, or you can feel free to email me or just send them through LinkedIn, and I will get back to you with any answers. Just give you a moment to check on that. No questions? Great. Well, hopefully that's been useful to you, and good luck with rebuilding your brand and your personal connection network here on LinkedIn. I hope this has been useful. Speak soon.